What happens if I have genuine trauma in my past that's blocking me from healthy relationships? Well, later in the pandemic, I was in a relationship that failed. And when it failed, not to go into too much detail, I had some crazy stuff going on in my life that definitely influenced the relationship to fail. I was slowly going paralyzed. I lost my ability to get out of bed. Couldn't prepare food without feeling really nauseous and exhausted. I gave up the place where I lived and moved back in with my parents. I was still working, but I was barely able to function. I could just crack open my laptop and type, but I couldn't cook. I couldn't do laundry. I couldn't even climb stairs. And I started getting to the point where I couldn't even use the bathroom independently anymore. I was using chairs to get myself up and down because I couldn't sit and stand very easily. And then I eventually got admitted into the hospital for a very rare autoimmune disorder that was causing me to become paralyzed. And I lost most of my ability, except in my arms, my throat, and my ability to breathe. But I even started losing my ability to swallow. And that is a genuine trauma that is still with me today at times. There was a time in hospital where they couldn't diagnose or figure out what was going on with me. And so I didn't know intellectually what was going on. And my body was literally shutting down. And I thought, this is it. Like, I'm in my 30s and I'm actually physically dying. So it was interesting because part of me knew I couldn't be dying because I was still mentally very lucid. I was like, it can't be that. But it was so odd. And then when they finally found out what I had Guillain-Barré syndrome, and then they treated me for it correctly. I started to recover, but it was not an easy recovery. I was in pain all the time when I would stand up and try to practice walking because my nervous system had shut down and it was reactivating. It constantly felt like I was feeling electric shocks every time that I walked. So I was in immense pain. Imagine a workout where you're being electrically shocked and that's constant pain. This is what it's like to learn how to use your nervous system again after it's shut off. But my point about this trauma that was going on was it really screwed up my relationship. As it turned out, probably wasn't the best relationship in the first place, but the trauma of that and the scars of that really messed with me manifesting new relationships. And so if I can get through that trauma and start manifesting healthy relationships again, I'm pretty confident whatever you've been through, whether it's cheating or whether it's betrayal of some kind, 5 Sensory took money or whatever that betrayal is, I've encountered this, okay? So even if you are like really good with relationships and you learn all the boundaries, you learn all the secrets, and you know the tactics 5 Sensories are up to, you can just have a genuine moment like I did where your health is in jeopardy and things can go sideways in your relationship, and it happens. What we need to do is learn from these life lessons and understand what we can take away from it and how we can manifest healthier relationships in the future. And what I learned was that I let this gentleman who was in my life at the time when I was going paralyzed into my life a little too easily. He was not really the best person for me. I'm not saying he can't partner with somebody who's more like him, but I have certain needs as a 6 Sensory. I need a clean and safe place for me to live in order to create and work hard. But his place was a total mess and it constantly stressed me out. He didn't want to move ever because all of housing and apartment rentals were really expensive that time. And it just wasn't going to work out for us long term. And being paralyzed helped me realize that. And so the trauma was actually a really good learning experience for me to ascertain what my future should look like and what my true needs were as a 6 Sensory. I'd been putting up with a lot of bad behavior, a lot of negative environments from roommates and places that I live where there are next door neighbors smoking weed or whatever. And I really learned that I have to keep my environment clean. I have to be around people who are not causing trouble, who are not smoking up substances, and have a harmonious atmosphere where I can thrive. And if my future relationship can't afford me that, then there's really no point in moving forward. So the trauma taught me something. And regardless of whatever trauma you've been through in your relationships, it will teach you something as well. There will be some need or some requirement that you've overlooked in the process of selecting somebody that you will become aware of if you're willing to dig and understand the life lesson from that. Now, sometimes it's too fresh and it's too painful, and you actually really just need to forget about the person for a while before you go digging for that life lesson. But once you're ready to assimilate it, it's okay to dig deep and find out what is really right for you in terms of partnership as a sixth sensory. You don't have to go living with this traumatic past and fear of it happening again. If you understand your part in it, even if it's a small percentage, you're going to understand what's going to create a happy, healthy relationship for you in the future. And in my case, I had been dating attractive people around that time that I thought were a good fit for me, but I realized that I'd placed a little bit too much emphasis on a person's attractiveness, and I really needed somebody who was going to be there for me in the long term, not somebody who is a fair weather partner. So maybe that's the life lesson that your trauma is teaching you about relationships. Are you really selecting the right people? Are you getting a sense of their moral character and whether or not they're going to stick around when things get tough? Because if people leave for superficial reasons, you don't want those people in your life. They're not good partners for you long term. And you have to reflect and understand why you allowed those partners into your life. For me, I just needed to be a little bit more courageous to raise my standards of my living environment and not be afraid of whatever negative things people said around me or their judgment based on my lifestyle when I chose to live a little bit more of an expensive lifestyle that really took care of me. And maybe you need to make those decisions for yourself too as a sixth sensory. Maybe it's time for you to move. Maybe your neighborhood's not that good and you've been so scared of the expense, but it's really your destiny to live in that really good neighborhood down the street where there's no crime. Maybe you need to up and move cities. Maybe it's too busy and there's too much crime going on in your local town. Whatever those life lessons are, pay attention to them and don't be afraid. Don't think because you have only X amount of money in your bank account that you can't make the change. If you're really committed to make a change in your life, you can make a change and transform your life today.